Right, so to help us discuss this story further, we're going to be joined via Zoom by Professor Sampson Mamphweli, is the head of Energy Secretariat at the South African National Energy Development Institute. Prof. Sampson, good afternoon. Thanks for your time here on the SABC.
Good afternoon to you and the viewers.
Prof, let's just start on the back of what was echoed today as Minister Pravin Gordhan, appeared before SCOPA today. Some of the sentiments coming through, him calling into question the credibility of the private intelligence report relating to fraud and corruption. How would you weigh in on what's transpired there before we get into some of the more specifics?
Yeah, it's difficult to form an opinion on the intelligence report part of things, because that is something that Andre de Ruyter himself was busy with. Yeah. Only the minister and Andre de Ruyter can respond sufficiently to that. But what becomes suspicious is the timing of the release of the information by Andre de Ruyter, who then starts to release information as after he has left the power utility. I would have thought that in terms of good governance, he should have shared whatever information that he may have had with the relevant authorities, and in this case it would have been either the ministers, and if the ministers don't listen to him, he should have gone straight to the president.
Prof, speaking about governance, perhaps we could look at the issue on a broader level. What's been indicated in terms of governance? We are looking at political accountability in office, political interference. There's issues of political will to act given the crisis that South Africa is in. How would you weigh in on what's transpiring on that front through these appearances?
So in terms of governance, proper governance, and I listened to Minister Gordhan just now in the clip that you played. Yeah. It's practically impossible for a minister following proper governance processes to interfere at the levels that Andre de Ruyter has been talking about, because the role of the minister is basically political oversight. And that then means that in terms of the Companies Act itself, the minister, as the representative of the shareholder, appoints the board, and the board then appoints the executives, which is in this case the CEO and the COO and the CFO. And those are then charged with the responsibility to run the entity. And that does not only apply to Eskom, it applies to all companies, because Eskom is governed by the Companies Act like all other companies. So where there is some form of interference that Andre de Ruyter may have detected at the time that he was CEO, he should have brought those to the attention of the ministers responsible, or who were responsible for that kind of interference, and brought them to the attention of the Companies Act and how they should interact with the Eskom management. And in the case where he fails or they don't listen to him, he might as well taken it up with the president, like I said. But all these, the biggest problem that I have is the timing of the events, because if you go back to what was happening during Andre de Ruyter's time, Minister Gordhan was one of the people who defended Mr. de Ruyter, to the bitter end. And there seemed to have been a very good working relationship between Minister Gordhan, the board, and the CEO at the time. Only to find now that on the background, the CEO was busy with other things that is now disclosing after he has left the company. And I agree with the minister that in terms of the disclosures, there's information that you can't disclose as an executive or former executive of a private company, and that applies to all companies across. What we're seeing now with Andre de Ruyter is very unprecedented.
Prof, what about the ability of law enforcement officials to carry out their jobs? Perhaps the motivation to pursue the matter after, there was reports. What's also being unearthed on that front when the private claims came into the public domain?
So these private claims, they were done wrongly in my view.
Okay.
They should have followed the natural laws of justice. The CEO or the former CEO should have brought this information to the attention of the Hawks after opening a police case where he sees that there are some criminal activities that are taking place. In terms of the law itself, the Hawks are not allowed to just start an investigation. Even if you give them information, there has to be a police case in place for them to be able to conduct the further investigations and recommend arrests where they find evidence of wrongdoing. In this case, we hear and read in some of the books and some media that underwriter handed over information to the NPA, he handed over information to the Hawks. The information should have been handed over to those agencies after police cases have been opened. And when he left the utility, Andre, instead of writing books and things like that, he should have sat down with the authority. In this case, if he felt that the ministers were implicated, he could have asked for audience with the president and given that information directly to the president and said, this is what I've experienced at Eskom, and this is what is making me uncomfortable. I've given this information to the Hawks, I've given this information to the NPA, nobody's acting. It then becomes the problem of the president in terms of how he takes that forward. But also when it comes to whistleblowing, he could have done that through first opening the police case and then doing the whistleblowing. When he did his first interview, for instance, he did not mention people, names of people. And people went around, speculating who could have been involved and all that. That becomes unfair to people that we're speculating about. And also the way he's doing things is unfair to them because he does not give them the right to reply in the proper platforms.
Just very quickly, in lieu of what's happening, the dynamics unfolding us heading into elections very, very soon, what's also being reflected within the ruling party itself? The ideological stances, perhaps also the factional wars on the correct action to take amongst, other vested interests. How would you weigh in on that? How critical is it in maneuvering what's transpiring and fixing the crisis at Eskom?
So the biggest issue in terms of fixing the crisis, and Minister Mantashe a few minutes ago alluded to this here at the conference that I'm attending. The biggest thing is basically to fix the energy availability factor for the coal fleet that has been failing. And we've got up to 18,000 megawatts. Sometimes it gets to 20,000 megawatts. That's failing on the coal fleet that has not been properly maintained in the past. So that is what needs to be done. Going forward, the energy action plan that the president has announced need to be fully implemented for us to start realizing the benefits of that plan. The implementation of the country's energy plan, which is the integrated resource plan, needs to be fast-tracked. And I'm happy, from after listening to Minister Mantashe when he was giving his budget vote speech yesterday, where he talked about the new generation capacity that will be procured from gas, 3,000 megawatts, nuclear, 2,500 megawatts, renewables up to 10,000 megawatts, that in bid window 7 and bid window 8. Those are some of the mid-term to long-term measures that are provided for in the President Energy Action Plan. The mid-term, the short-term measures include bringing back the current coal fleet that's failing to service, and also issues around small-scale embedded generation and demand response and plus energy efficiency. So all those things need to kick in for us to be able to deal with load shedding, and it can be done within 6 to 12 months if we get our heads together and start working towards that without being distracted by many other things that have got nothing to do with the fixing of load shedding.
Oh, Prof, there's so many more questions that answers at this point, but in the interest of time, I'm going to have to leave the conversation there for now. Thank you for your time here on the SABC. Professor Sampson Mamphweli, the head of Energy Secretariat at the South African National Energy Development Institute, weighing in on the back of Minister Pravin Gordhan having appeared before SCOPA today.